just say I appreciate you for coming on the show, Stephen. It's really refreshing to have somebody out there that takes pictures of their surroundings and just gives a little history of it. You have your own website, which I was, where all your stuff is at. And you wrote a couple of books, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a writer also, and I've written. I have 6 literary works that have come out in recent years, and 2 collections of photographs, with a third coming out in the fall. So that have come out in book form. But I also, obviously, with the photographic work, I show it, and it's something that is meant to be seen off of a screen. It's not just digital content. It's meant to produce. In a sense, I like to think of photography as a thing that produces photographic prints, really. So there's another thing that happens if you're photographing towards, say, a backlit screen. And that's a different. In many respects, it's a related but different art form, and one that doesn't. You can do both, or you can, but one is photography, and one is a kind of, when you're making prints, making photographs, that is to say, and one is a kind of content creation of a different sort. So for me, the end is not the website. The website is fine, but the end is, and it's a way to get. It's part of what one has to do in order to get shows, in order to sell prints, in order to have dealers handle your work, and in order to have institutions want to show your work. So
Right. Yeah. I know exactly what you mean, because I have my own website also. And I just started a section on it called, boots on ground, local history and stuff like that. Just going to different places in America, taking pictures, writing about the history, and putting it on my website. And I've been doing that for a couple of years now, with my website at least. But I just started the boots on ground, local history section, just maybe last year. I mean, I've been to places all my life. I just decided to put it in, book, in written statements, something as a journal or something like that.
Sure.
And then I eventually turned that into writing me a book and stuff like that myself. And I was just very interested in a lot of things, especially history. A lot, Fat Jesus mentioned earlier about the Great Pyramids of Giza and stuff like that. There's a lot of history just here in America, that where I live at, that there's tons of things of history around here.
Sure.
And nobody really talks about it. And sometimes it's forgotten, or just, very minimum people know about it. And I feel like, man, there's a lot of history that a lot of people don't know that, contributed to the major factors of, what's going on today. And, I like to go over there and just, bring that history back to life and stuff like that. I go, I have to sometimes go to grave sites. Some of the grave sites that I go to are very stunning, like the Edgar Cayce grave site. I went to Kentucky, drove up there, looked for his grave, sat there. People gave him some offerings. It was very calming, area.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, man, a lot of people read about Edgar Cayce and read his books and his material and stuff, but they don't know where he was buried at. I actually spent a lot of time at Fort Campbell, Kentucky. That's near Hopkinsville. I was in the military, and I was there for almost my whole career, and I never ever knew his gravesite was there. And after I retired and got into wanting to do my history stuff, my local history boots on ground thing, I was reading his book, and I was like, oh man, he's from Hopkinsville, Kentucky. Why I didn't catch this earlier? I could have went there. So I drove up there and actually got to see it. So, I'm kind of going back and tracing my steps back to some of the places that I've been to so I can bring back to life. What made you get into this? Like, what was the one thing that struck you that said, hey, I need to get into this?
Well, in terms of which is the writing or the photography, or
okay. Well, I mean, you could go back. You could go back to when you were a young kid growing up.
Okay. Yeah, sure. Well, I when I was a kid, as a photographer, as a kid, I had an uncle who was a photographer and who had a dark room. and gave me a camera, and I started taking pictures. He showed me how to develop and make prints in that setting. And when you're a kid, that process is, and this is a long time. This is long before any kind of digital imaging was possible or even imagined. Really.
35 millimeters.
Yeah. Well,
Or even before that, right?
Well, I'm shooting at the time. I wasn't shooting with a 35 millimeter camera, but 110 cameras, 220 cameras. These other film stocks that are cheap, were cheaper and were maybe a little less complicated. Sometimes a 35 millimeter camera I would use, but it's magic when you're in a dark room. It's a physical process. You are making an image appear on it is as though it's this very especially when you're a kid and you don't fully understand the chemical process and what light sensitive paper is and all of this other stuff. It is a crazy thing. So but for me, I was there was I think I understood from an early age, though I couldn't have articulated it at the time, that there was a continuum between other art practices and photography, in the sense that I could think through, and this is something that is related to what you were saying earlier, Fat Jesus. I'm not sure if we were recording yet or not, but that the compositional parameters of a flat plane can be the same in a photograph or in the Nazca lines from above, as seen from above, or in a painting, certainly. And so I was thinking about paintings, and I was thinking about drawing, and I was doing all of that at the same time that I was taking photographs. So my photographic practice really developed as a compositional practice, one that is focused on how the way in which framing and the use of the particular parameters that the photographer has in their toolbox, so to speak, in terms of things that other say arts don't have, the manipulation of depth of field, for instance, the ways in which sharpness and lens and lens length can affect how a composition happens. All of that stuff. It was clear to me that this was a way of making the kinds of compositions happen that happen in other visual arts, but at the same time that the photograph has this character where, at the time in particular, but still in my work, where you can assert an informational content to the photo. You can assert a relationship between what's in the frame, this composition, which is itself formal on some level. It has the characteristics of formal composition, abstract composition, but at the same time, it is causal with relationship to the world in which the photographer is photographing. It can at least assert that it's indicating a relationship to the light that was available at the moment that the shutter clicks. So, yeah, and so that.
Do you focus on the background first before you start your artwork? Like, before you begin, do you look at the background? I mean, this is all happening instantly, by the way, to all our viewers out there. So everything is instant. So in the few milliseconds when he looks at it, before he clicks that little button, he's looking at everything in that one 2D picture, but he sees it in a 3D format, and then imagines and focuses, says, is this the perfect moment? And I put myself in your shoes, and I'm like thinking, my gosh, this is all happening right there, right now. And just to get that perfect moment, and hopefully, and then how many times you're doing this? A million times, just to get that one perfect photograph. That has to be grueling. So that's incredible, So, I mean, do you just focus on that background first and then try and get the rest just to get in there? And then it's like, there, you see how my hand just pulls in,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then is that how it works, or just pull us through that a little bit?
Yeah, no, it's complicated and it shifts in the particular project and in the particular shot. So I also now I think my practice developed so that I work really in series, so that the series itself has a conceptual framework that constrains what's in each series and that determines what's in each series, which gives so in that respect, then it shares something with conceptual art in that it is attempting to provide, in a sense, the parameters for viewership. It's saying this is what this series is. It's the repetition, it's a semantic repetition, or it's a structural or formal repetition because it's a repetition of a particular structure in the world, of a particular kind of compositional structure in the frame. And that means sometimes that there isn't a lot of time
No,
because
not at all.
so for instance to do the kind of so the focus, it has to be, as you say, instantaneous. If I'm a series that I did that I've worked on quite a bit in the Tokyo subway system, which I think probably you were thinking of, Fat Jesus, when you were discussing.
Split seconds.
Yeah, split seconds, because there's a huge crowd. They're
Yeah,
coming at you. You have to do it like that, and they're
blurry. Yeah.
curious. They don't know what's going. The light isn't great, so the background that one is looking
In
at.
the time of day, it's
Yeah,
like I'm gonna have to come back.
yeah, totally. Happens all the time. It happens all the time. Like, this is not the right
That's
time to do it.
crazy.
Not the right
Just
light.
the thing. You
Yeah,
have to like go, okay, I'm gonna have to come back at 3 o'clock
yeah,
tomorrow. Just oh gosh. And then what they're wearing too, the colors, and
yeah,
oh no, that's insane,
yeah,
Yeah, that is crazy.
yeah.
Oh. And then festivals as well, because they're wearing a certain color. If it's the Dragon Festival, it's going to be red, or it's going to be a certain color,
Yeah, have
and then you
you
capture it.
any festivals?
No, I don't photograph people. No
Oh, you
people.
Not at
don't?
all. Oh yeah, that's what I
Never,
noticed. I
never.
noticed that too. Yeah. So it's basically non non people. That
Yeah,
was a good question. Yeah, that's awesome.
yeah.
So yeah, so that leads me to another question: is will your artwork transform in the future to people, or is it just going to stay within the architectural format of non-people? It's just going to be linear in or formation of objects itself.
Yeah, it'll be material culture based entirely. I'm
Okay.
never, I don't know. I don't trust the way that images of people are used or seen. I think that there are two problems for me in photographing people. One is I don't trust the way people see images of other people, that they are always objectifications, and they
Hmm.
are always modes of uh, of denigration, the way that image is used against other people. And then,
That's a good form of saying that. I appreciate you explaining that to all our viewers, because that's very important for them to know that. Please continue in explaining
yeah,
this.
and then the other issue for me, I mean, it's a purely aesthetic issue in the sense that you put a person in the frame, then you put a face in the frame in a photograph. It's the only thing that's left in the photograph. It's the only thing in the photograph for all intents and purposes. People don't. So it limits your ability as an artist to think compositionally so radically that it becomes uninteresting, I think, for me as an artist also. So for those two reasons, I mean, the first is primary, that I am really not interested in what seems to me a practice that I can't control the ways that, where I can't control how it may devolve into exploitation of some kind.
Okay.
And in fact,
Yeah.
it's proven quite useful for me in some of the projects I do, because I work, as you've probably seen on my website, I work in Italy a lot, and I work in squatted buildings in communities where there are abandoned buildings in and around Rome, but a few other places in Italy too, and people reoccupy them, the unhoused, in various ways, sometimes undocumented, sometimes people who are merely unable to afford rents in Rome. So these communities are rich and interesting, and I mean rich culturally and socially, and I photograph the domestic spaces in those communities.
May I interject?
Sure,
And I'm
please.
sorry, Rebirth of the Word, for jumping in.
Yeah, please.
And I wanted to say, in my sociology classes, we talked about this. People are inherently, and they don't do it on purpose at times, and they do it on purpose, are liars. They lie to themselves and they lie to the people around them because they want to maintain a facade of some kind, or an appearance. So in its immediate appearance, when they appear to people in a crowd, they do dress up, but that's not how they dress up all the time. So when you see them immediately, they might look amazing, but that's not how they look like all the time. So taking a picture of a person at that moment of time may not be authentic, as per se. I'm not sure if this fits in with what you were talking about, but when Stephen takes a picture, excuse me if I could use your first name,
No, please,
uh,
please.
Stephen takes a picture. He's taking a picture of of like the authenticity of the human culture, the experience of that human culture that lasts forever. And that is the authenticity of that picture. And I'm going to repeat that word over and over again. And it is who lived there, that past, that can't change. So people can change, but what they built, or where they live at, and everything like that, when he takes that picture, it's just not going to evolve so quickly as a person can evolve so quickly. So I'm hoping, I hope I explained that correctly. Did I do it just
Yeah,
justice or
I
anything
think
like
so. And it's interesting to think. I work with with an anthropologist a lot of the time, who writes essays about the work which you saw referred to there in various places. And I and that and her name is Carolyn White, and she's an archaeologist by training. And her focus is also on material culture, rather than being on broader, say in anthropology, ethnography, a talk-based ethnography. And there's a way in which what we share from her kind of archaeology of the contemporary world, you could say, and my photographs, which are focused on material culture. The people are, as you say, unaware of the materiality of their surroundings, of the implications of that materiality. They're not even. It's not even a forceful attempt at dissimulation or fabrication. It's simply almost an absence of awareness of. We glide through our material surroundings in a certain way, and so focusing on them reveals a lot about how people live and who they are, in ways that they themselves don't even know about themselves. It's also true that people's narratives about themselves can be, as you say, they are narrativity is often a way of delimiting what people will notice about materiality. So any narrative is excluding some details. I mean, most details of someone's life. They seem irrelevant. It's not because people are trying to deceive, but they think, well, I'm just going to tell you. Sometimes they're trying to deceive, of course, but I'm just going to tell you the important things, and the important things are this, this, and this, and you think, well, that's leaving out a lot that might be kind of important, and
Yeah.
so But the materiality is something that I can bring to the fore in a way that I think can tell or can speak to in a different way to the ways to the aspects of people's lives. And in fact, so what I was going to say also about this work in these situations where people are where marginalized communities are living and wanting to. I want to image their domestic spaces in ways that reveal how those spaces are interestingly rich living environments, even though they are transform. Even within a series of mine, which was photographing a tent city of asylum seekers in Rome, behind a train station in Rome in 2018. And so I ended, after much time with people, I could get permission to photograph the interior of their tents to see what they were like.
Oh,
And
I want to ask you a quick question.
yeah,
Can you define what graffiti is? In this basic form. I mean, not the Cambridge definition, but your own personal definition. What graffiti is throughout all of time, because our viewers want to know
yeah.
exactly what graffiti is. I mean, it could be in any type, but what is it to you?
For me, they're I suppose I would probably distinguish graffiti from say the painting of street murals. I think that they're both art, but they're art that have different expressive points. So the graffiti, I would describe graffiti as something that is often word based and meant to express personal identifications, personal emotions, and ways of expressing an entire social milieu, in a manner of speaking.
Yeah.
And
Even the government has their own graffiti.
they
It
do.
doesn't even have to be a
No,
personal or a kid or something like that. Even
that's
the
right.
government has put up graffiti. But can
Right.
a 3D object be even graffiti?
I suppose, sure. I mean, you can. It's not graph. So in the word, it seems to suggest.
Okay, so so a
So
3D object cannot be graffiti. It has
I
to be
mean,
graphed on a
but
flat object.
at the same time, I think that probably you're pointing out that the spirit of a 3D object can be graffiti-like in the same way that graffiti can be. Like,
Our visual optics
yeah,
views a 2D dimension, a two-dimensional format. So we're seeing a canvas as we speak. So we're watching right now on a screen, on a
yes,
phone screen. We're all watching right now on a phone screen somewhere. So that's a two-dimensional object. But in reality, we are three-dimensional beings in a three-dimensional background in real life. So
yes,
when we see graffiti, it's located on a two-dimensional format on a wall. That's the word graffiti. It's graphed on a two-dimensional object.
yeah,
But should we reword it to if I mean, can we have, which is wild because if we're looking at it and it's 3D, we're looking at it and it looks like two dimensions if we stay
yeah,
still long enough, right?
right, right.
I'm jumping in the rabbit hole. That's how I do it.
Well, I
So
mean, we could, in this sense, maybe describe something as almost as for for lack of another term, as unlicensed, sort of an unlicensed art practice. So you might you might create a sculpture and put it in a park without being given permission to put that sculpture in the park.
seen
Whatever
that in
it is.
France, in Europe.
Well,
There's artists that
absolutely.
they replace certain things and see if people notice if it's art or it's not art, and people do notice it.
it's happened
Well,
here.
that's a good word that you used, art. I think art, in a sense, is anything that somebody creates, no matter what it is. To the
Sure.
smallest detail.
Yeah.
I was going to. I actually, like I said, I'd like to take photographs and stuff like that. And Fat Jesus says something where you were working, do you work the background and stuff like that? I look at a picture and I try to create art out of every picture that I take, whether it's something that somebody else might not see as art or worthy
Sure.
or something like that. I would look at something and be like, oh, I can take this into a picture. I noticed when I was going through your photos, some of your photos right here while you was talking, and one of the things that I've noticed is that beauty seems to come out more when you see it in black and white, and I'm starting to realize that now at an older age than I did when I was younger. Everybody wanted a color TV. Everybody wanted, some kind of. I mean, if you had a black and white TV, you couldn't really enjoy the television show. But I've noticed that I wanted to start taking pictures and converting them into some type of a black and white format because it seems like it brings more of the character of the picture out. Something that Fat Jesus was talking about.
Shadows.
I have a Nikon P950. It's basically a bridge camera. I got it for taking moon shots and stuff like that, or bird photography and stuff like that, nature type photography. And it's not really good with light, like you was talking about earlier. You was talking about how you had to use the light and all this. It's not a really good light camera for low light. But there's also programs out there, that help you bring out some of the detail depending on it is. And now, because of it being 2026, a lot of these programs are AI. Now, I know a lot of people will sit here and say, well, if you use or incorporate AI into any of your, art, it's not real art. And I kind of see it like, it's a tool. I have Topaz. I'm not sure if you know what Topaz is. I have Topaz Photo.
Uh-huh.
And because
I've
of
heard of it, but I don't know it. I don't know
it's
the
like
program.
Lightroom or something like that. It goes with something like that. But I use it when I'm in a low light situation because not every picture is going to be perfect. You won't have the right light. It might be too dark. It might be too far away. Something might happen that interferes with bringing the perfection of that picture out. And what I like to do is I like to use Topaz because of my camera. I mean, it's a good camera. It's just not one of the best for low light situations, like if it's really cloudy outside or something like that.
It's not a full frame camera.
That's a good question. He mentioned using a program. It sounds like you don't use any programs. You actually go raw into.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. If you use any kind of programs for your photography? Because I know, like I said earlier, not every picture is going to be perfect when you take it, and you have to sometimes bring out that perfection.
Do you really rawly take a picture and don't touch it up at all, or do you touch it up a bit?
I touch it up in some ways. I mean, in touching up,
that'd be insane if you don't touch it up. I mean, I'm like, damn, that's a really good eye.
you, in a sense, the camera is already touching it up. So, people so often will say to me, well, do you change the color? And I say, well, the color, firstly, color doesn't exist in the world. It exists as a property of the
eye of the beholder
is receiving the light. So, different people see color differently, and that's for certain the case. The color I shoot raw. I always shoot raw, and that's in order to be able to manipulate parameters like white balance, and other kinds of color or detail parameters that you can't manipulate with the same ease or the same wealth of information as is available in a raw file. So when you shoot, and now in a JPEG, an out of camera image, the color is determined by an algorithm that's set by the camera company that makes the software. So you're not getting that's. You'll notice that different camera companies have different algorithms in that way.
What camera do you use?
I use a lot of different cameras, but I use.
I thought you did.
Much of the work here is shot. It's all shot with either medium format or or full frame cameras.
What's your favorite?
My favorite camera
Mhm.
is a Hasselblad X2D, which is
I don't even know.
Watching this
What,
movie. I know
what did
exactly
he?
what you're
What
talking about.
did you? What
That
did you just
camera
say?
is expensive, bro. That camera is very, 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 very expensive.
What are you guys talking about? I don't even know what you're talking about. What kind of camera is that? Jesus.
It's just a medium format camera. So I also use a Fuji medium format camera. I use Sony full frame cameras. I use Leica.
I have a Sony. So
Okay.
I know what a Sony is, but the
Well,
one you
but
just
Sony makes
mentioned, who
Sony
makes a Hasselhoff?
Hasselblad is a
Hasselblad.
camera company. It's been making cameras since the early days of photography, of at least SLR photography. So, but I will tell you. So, in the case you're thinking about your Sony, different cameras from the same maker, Sony or Fuji or what have you, have different size sensors. So, and
So ignorant. I'm
so
so sorry.
no, that's okay. So you may have a camera that's a small camera. It's a great camera for all kinds of purposes. It may have a sensor that's the size of your fingernail.
Yeah, it's an inch. Yeah.
And the 1-inch sensor, which is a good sensor, the Sony 1-inch sensor. But a full frame camera refers to a camera, any camera that has a sensor that's the size specifically of a 35 millimeter negative.
Yeah, my sensor on my, that's why I say my Nikon, the sensor is pretty small on there, so it's not good with low light. So and I do use programs,
other things, and so I most of my manipulations, as it were, are fairly straightforward and happen through Photoshop. But in sort of correcting, so I'll do some cropping, I'll do some other things. I'm not actually that interested in those kinds of manipulations. If I have to do too much, I'll just throw away the file. I'm not that I don't need it. I have other images usually within the series, and I'm making, as I mentioned earlier, I'm making the images and I'm making the files.
Yeah, I can imagine that.
Towards the print, I'm thinking about the print. I'm thinking about what happens when I make a print and what that's going to look like with ambient light in a gallery or in a book. And those
you had a symposium. Yeah, you've been to galleries and stuff like that.
Were you?
I've had many shows and also.
Were you a bit of a hoarder in the beginning when you were doing this? When you started off on this journey, when taking photography in the beginning, were you hoarding photographs and you found yourself, oh my God, I need to do something about this because I can't find the photograph I'm looking for? So did you had to learn how to just get rid of photographs?
Sure. I suppose in terms of, it's easier when, I have lots of negatives from when I was shoot before the digital era, of course. And I also have, many, it's easy to store negatives.
It's a nightmare, right?
They can degrade. And I have everybody has their own organizational system. And
I have a lot of hard drives.
Yeah, I store things in the cloud. I store things on hard drives. I don't use a database program like Lightroom. I have my own system, and that works fine for me.
No, yeah, that's what I've heard that most people do. They have their own style. For me, I'm a beginner photographer. I just started maybe like 2 years ago. And I had one of the first things that I had to learn about, and I'm not sure if this is still today, but one of the guys on YouTube was saying, learn the triangle for the lighting and all that other stuff.
Sure.
And I guess the best way that I can explain that is control the lighting, what is the I can't even remember
three parameters that determine exposure, right?
Yeah.
It's shutter speed.
Yep.
The aperture.
Yeah.
So aperture is extremely important, and film speed, which is ISO, right? Yeah. So those are the things, and we don't. These all correspond to parameters in film photography, right? So when you bought a roll of film, a roll of Tri-X, it might have an ISO of 100. It might have an
Mhm.
ISO of 150. The higher ISO, the lower, the more light sensitive the film.
Yeah, that's why I said learn about the lighting with the ISO. Yeah.
So, and you, of course, so you're constantly, one is always having to make these decisions, right? You're saying, well, I can open up the lens and let more light in, but that makes the depth of field more shallow.
Yep.
So
Yep.
is that going to be a problem in this photograph? It may also degrade certain edges of the photograph if you're photographing a flat field. These are all the kinds of parameters that you as a beginning photographer, you're trying to master.
Yeah, I had to learn
And
raw
to
and all that
see
other stuff.
and to see through those things, right? You
Yep.
have to
Yep.
you have to approach what you're looking at through the parameters that you can use as an artist thinking about what the capture will produce. But I'm not a person, so I only shoot towards a project. Like, I don't walk around with a camera. I go out if I have a project with a camera. I'm completely uninterested in taking a random photo. I don't care at all. And if a photo is not going to be part of a series, I'm not going to take it.
Did it evolve
Yeah.
into that, or did you used to do that
It
at one
evolved-
time when
it
you were a
evolved into
teenager?
as a teenager or younger, I of course experimented in different ways. It evolved in that way, and
Okay.
the one of the difficult things that you'll find as you pursue your life as a photographer is how and people in your audience. The question is, if you're as an artist, you can take many people take wonderful. You mentioned taking moon shots and bird shots and things like wildlife shots. Many people do wonderful photos of that sort, but how are they distinct from it's just like many people do plein air painting. They make nice watercolors when they go to the beach or when they're go to the park. That's great. Nothing wrong with that. How do you distinguish your your photographs and your photographic voice from the voice of other people? So it's not that it's not a pleasure and an artistic expression to take those photographs, but the question is what you're asking of someone else when they look at the work. So you think about this is true with writing, it's true with anything, it's true with podcasting. Who is your interlocutor? Who is listening to you? Who is the person? Who are you speaking to? And why should they bother?
Know your audience.
Know your audience, but ask yourself, if you're taking pictures of the moon, that's great. You're not going to have an audience because there's too many pictures of the moon, unless you figure out a way to take a picture of the moon that says this is a distinct expression of moonness, that is of a distinct lunacy, we'll call it.
Like the red moon that one day that
Sure, that
yeah.
5,000 photographs a minute, probably all over anyone who saw the red moon. That's great. Again,
and there was one that was over in New York that was just very impressive, where the Statue of Liberty was, that someone took, was just iconic.
And sometimes people get lucky with an iconic photograph like that. They're in the right place at the right time. Or maybe that was someone who actually is a practiced photographer who has taken many photographs that have the possibility of being planned iconic.
You know what? They probably had like 4 cameras on tripods, and they were facing a certain direction at the time. They said, "We're going to do this." That's probably you right there, right?
Well, sort of, except I'm totally uninterested in the moon and in the Statue of Liberty and anything.
No, waiting for the sunrise to come up at the certain time. Yeah.
No, I'm just saying that, like, there are people who are. I don't take any wildlife photographs. I'll give you as an example. I don't care. There's enough wildlife photographs, and I don't. There's simply nothing that I can. Nothing.
Do you wait for the? Do you wait when you take a picture to make sure there's no aviary or avian or no dogs, no animals, no nothing to appear in your photograph completely? Okay.
And no people,
That's
especially.
got to be tough.
It can be tough. It can be tough. I mean,
Yeah.
there are
Pigeon flies in. Oh gosh.
right. I mean, it's in general, it has to be unless I'm trying to take a photograph of.
You must hate New York. There's pigeons everywhere.
One could imagine taking, for instance, a photo project that is focused on pigeons, and that would be more interesting to me.
Yeah.
For many people have done that, but I love New York, but I
Tough
haven't.
place to take a picture with. There's so many people, so much animals, everything like that.
It's true, although I've done a lot of work in Tokyo, as we've talked about. I mean, really, you want to see a lot of people, and since I've have a project in the Tokyo subway system, as we discussed, that is, that's a place where to empty the photos of people to make sure there are no people in the photographs is quite difficult. You find you have you have control over what's in the frame. You can always manage to find that. But in truth, I haven't yet worked out a project in New York. I haven't found a way of having of a series, or found a series I'm compelled to make.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many photographers have done the 9/11. There's so many pictures of the same thing. There's just not anything original
Right.
out there. Yeah, it's just very difficult. It's just a lot of photographers out there. I'm going to be straight up with you.
Let me ask you something. You had some of your books. You took the pictures from your projects and put it in the books. What made you do that? Yeah, on the cover. What made you do that? Because that's actually interesting, because I actually was thinking about taking some of the pictures that I've taken, because when you mentioned about you don't take pictures of people and animals and stuff like that, you don't care too much about it. I that kind of struck me, because I did exactly what you said that you should do. When I go to a historical place like a museum or a fort or anything like that, anything historical, and I see an animal or a bug or something that's in that area, I try to incorporate that into my narrative portion of it and take a picture of it. And I try to separate, okay, everybody's seen an armadillo sometime in their life, but have you ever seen an armadillo while you was at a museum walking across? And I actually have a video of, armadillo was around while I filmed it. And, I try to create my own videos where I create my own narration about exactly, what about the historical location of the place. And I take pictures and videos and I incorporate them together. And as I'm talking, I bring these little
armadillo
things in there. I done butterflies like that. A butterfly came. I seen two birds landing onto a fort one time, and they were just, walking around. And I kind of said, they're patrolling, the area and stuff. I try to incorporate that, and that's very important, because, like you said, there's, it's just like podcasting. Everybody wants to be a podcaster. Everybody wants to be out there sharing stuff. But what do you do different than other people? Like what I like to do, and I'm very fascinated by your background, is books. I like to read a lot of books, a lot of historical books. I read a lot. I mean, I probably do that more than I do anything else.
He looks like he's at the municipal library right now.
Yeah, it's fantastic background. And what I like to do is and what I try to do is, because I know you have books, I'm actually going to buy one of your books, and hopefully we'll be able to have a conversation. What I like to do is, I have two things on my YouTube that is very popular amongst the small crowd of people that actually follow me, and it helped me actually get 100 best top 100 podcasts in a couple of different areas and stuff. But I have one that's called What I've Learned from Reading This Book. So I take a book from my library and say, hey, this is what I've read from this book. It's mostly historical stuff anyway, so it's just history. And since I've read a lot of books, I try to give commentary to either add more to it or so on and so forth. Then the other section is boots on ground. It's a section where I learned how to be creative with it. I never had any field in or done anything in like video editing or anything like that. So everything that I'm doing now is pretty much learning on the go. But I wanted to capture, my journey, because my book is actually called Journey Through the Origins of History. And it's just my journey, what I've done throughout my life, where I've been. And I'm kind of like you. I don't really necessarily go out there to take pictures of random things. I do bring my camera with me in my truck every now and then. I don't do it all the time, but I do bring it with me and try to capture something, that catches my eye or whatnot. But when I'm out there in the museums and at these historical sites, my mind gets into this. What is the best way to take this photo? Everybody already seen this location because it's historical and it's open to the public. But how can I capture this location to bring people to be interested in it and to talk about it? Because people see something, look at it, and be like, "Oh, that's cool," and scroll on by. But I want people to be able to communicate. Oh man, where's this at? Can you tell me more about this? And that's when I know that people are really paying attention. And I know if you had that because you've been a guest speaker plenty times on stage and stuff. So I know that makes you feel good. And every time that you get on stage, there's always going to be pictures of people, of course, you and yourself like that. How do you feel when you go there and people ask you the same question, for instance, how do you explain that with the same passion that you do when you said it to the first time that somebody asked you that?
That's a good question. I don't know. I guess I am. For me, I try to put myself in the shoes or the mindset of the person asking the question. And I understand that. I do understand that there's some things in particular that are more interesting, or not more interesting, are the entry points for understanding my work or other people's work, or or thinking about art. People aren't necessarily used to thinking about art in a particularly self-conscious way. They haven't come to it. They haven't practiced that mode of reflection, and so the entry point is often echoed over and over again. But the interesting thing about it is, if you indulge the entry point, if you indulge that first question, which might be the same question that you've been asked 100 times, the next question is probably going to be divergent a little bit and go in a different direction. And the next question after that, the conversation you're starting, actually, the thing that motivates me is the conversation has the potential to be surprising and new. Even if it always starts in the same place, or if it often starts in the same place with the same question. So, I just hope for that.
I like that because of the simple fact that, when I started my website, it was only because I felt like I had a lot of information to share. I would hear and see people say things that weren't necessarily true about historical events, or may have something missing, or they're asking a question, and I actually was able to read and find an answer to one of those questions and bring it. So I started my website, and I started with one article. I didn't start with 10, 20. I read so many different ways on how to create a blog and so on and so forth. But I just started with one article. And then every 2 or 3 weeks after that, I decided to write one more article, or write another article. Then it became, okay, now I want to do one a month because I want to give more time to these articles. But I also started carrying on doing different things. Like I wanted to start doing videos and stuff like that, because some people don't like to read. But what really strikes me is that I have more people reading my articles than they actually watch my videos, which is very interesting. I've had my website for about 7 years now, and I'm close to like almost 1 million views on there. And, it's interesting to me because it makes me feel good to know that people actually want to read about the stuff that I'm sharing rather than watching a video on it. A video can take 30 minutes to an hour and a half, 2 hours, depending on what it is. But you can, you're taking time out of your day, which most people don't do, especially in the world of TikTok and shorts and all these other things going on. You're taking the time to read a 5 to 10 minute article of mine and then comment on it afterwards, and then want to have a discussion. So it was almost like, and I try to capture the right picture for that article. Like every 2 or 3 paragraphs, I try to put a picture in there, especially on my boots on ground of a place that I've been to make it like, this is more realistic. This is an actual visitation of this place. And That's what actually got me into wanting to create narrative format for videos and stuff like that. But it was I guess the picture that helped along the way. And it made me feel good to know that people actually want to look at this rather than just videos, turn it on a YouTube video or a podcast. And like I was saying earlier, everybody wants to be a podcaster, and there's a lot of photographers. I mean, I'm pretty sure you ran into a lot of people that say, "Hey, I'm also a photographer. This is what I do," and they ask you for tips.
They got photography school. Yeah.
Yeah. And
well, yeah, it's I mean, everybody carries a camera with them all the time.
Yeah. Yeah,
right.
Yeah, especially with the phone now.
In their pockets.
Yeah, in their phone. Yeah.
So people are constantly taking photos, and people don't really know photography. They don't know people haven't seen art, right? They've that is meant as art. They've seen photography through Instagram, something that's meant to be scrolled through, right? Not to be lingered over.
Yeah, that's why I was saying scroll on through. They just scroll through.
Exactly.
So I wanted to ask you, and we touched upon New York a couple of times, and it was we purposely talked about New York.
Okay.
And you know what's coming. Do you think that your parents were the reason why they pushed you out of high school and drove you into philosophy?
My parents, no. It wasn't my parent. In my case, it wasn't. I mean, certainly my parents, it was by virtue of opportunities I think I wouldn't have had without them. But my parents didn't go to college, and they didn't know from philosophy at all.
That's interesting.
They were confused.
How was that journey to go to college? Was it difficult? Because when you have parents that there's a book called Rich Dad Poor Dad. So when you don't have parents that go to college, most likely the child doesn't go to college either, because they don't know that pathway to go there.
Right.
So they think the same way. It's like, I don't need it either.
Right.
So did that drive you to not complete high school? And then all of a sudden I see that you actually were given like an accelerated class or accelerated coursework to a special, there's a university or a college that you went to.
Yes, I went to. So in fact, technically,
what an amazing journey.
I didn't complete high school. I dropped out of high school and went to college, though. I mean, I left high school, and I don't have a high school diploma, but so I left high school after my sophomore year of high school and began what would have been my junior year of high school as a freshman in college. That was something that, again, it was perplexing to my parents, for sure. They were supportive, but they certainly didn't encourage it. I will say that I grew up in a town where, and in a school district where almost it was, solidly middle class, and almost everybody went to college in one way or another. So it was expected that people would go to college. Maybe you'd go to the community college, or you'd go to the state school, the state university with New Jersey. So you might, and Rutgers is a good school, and so people would go to one of the Rutgers campuses or whatever, or you might go, further afield. I ended up leaving high school in part really not as because I was not. It was a mental health crisis for me as much as anything else.
I had one of those too.
Okay.
Yeah, birds of a feather flock together. Yeah, I've been through that as well.
Yeah. So that and it ended up working out for me because it got me to where I needed to be. But that's such opportunities. It's luck. It's whatever.
You found your way. That's
yeah. I gotta say, your journey was amazing to read about. Like I said, I've been looking at your website and then looking at some of the other stuff that you've been posting and stuff. And it's very interesting because you had an amazing journey. Like you said, you didn't graduate high school, but you graduated college. I never, I graduated high school. I went to college, but I never graduated from college. I never even wanted to go to school. I mean, I hated school already when I was in school as it is, but my favorite subject was, history and geometry and stuff like that. Because of the simple fact that a lot of people talk about physics and then math and all this other stuff, and then the way the pyramids and all this stuff was built. So all
You
that
were
stuff
just
is very
undecided. You were just
No, I
undecided.
wasn't undecided. I just never.
You wanted to
I never.
graduate from everything. That
No,
was
I
your
didn't. I
problem.
didn't. I still didn't want. I
You
still don't
wanted
want
a
to go to
degree from
college.
everything, and they said, "Nah, you could only get one degree, buddy."
No,
And you're like,
trust me.
"I'm out of here."
I never wanted to go to school. I still don't like school, but I love education. And I think that the only reason why I didn't like school was only because I don't think my teachers were very serious. My parents didn't go to school either. They barely even helped me with my homework and stuff like that.
That's
And they
how it
never really
is.
pushed me
That
for
is
my
how it
passion.
is in college. It is. They just
Yeah.
leave you out there. They throw you out to the wolves,
No,
man.
not even
It's
in college.
crazy.
It was.
I
This was
hated
in
that
high
in
school.
college. Yeah,
This was.
you know how
This,
many
this
times I
was
had to
in.
repeat. I had to repeat mathematics over and over again because the teacher would throw me out to, okay, just read this book, and that was it. I'm like, can you please help me with this? No, until I found one teacher, Indian professor from India, literally from India, had three doctorate degrees. And he sat and taught me. I mean, this guy had better things to do. And he actually worked for the US government. Like literally, he did not had to be in that college. He was in Miami-Dade College. And I asked him, it's like, dude, you have everything in life. And why are you here? Why are you here? It's like, because I love to teach. I'm like, literally, he loved teaching. And I was like, dude, I feel underprivileged already. It's like, dude, you should be in Massachusetts teaching at Harvard, not me. But I was super like, I was humbled that I was able to be taught, and he taught a certain way. He taught short form, and he got into my brain where he taught me how to learn mathematics in a certain way because he knew what my problem was. And I was like, dude, as much as I failed math, I shouldn't have not passed college at all. And I finally passed it. And then I got into statistics, and statistics was my favorite.
Oh, that's great.
So,
That's
yeah.
great. Where
Not for me.
did you meet, by the way? Is that a known story in the podcast? Like, where did you two become friends?
Well, I go to different conferences and conventions and stuff like that because I was very into a lot of history. So I try to get a lot of the content creators to talk to about share them some of the information that they were might missing. And then David Stig Hansen, he's a guy that been to the Rich Hat structure in Africa, them talking about Atlantis and stuff like that. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but he told me about him. And he's into like tridactyls and stuff. It's basically a species that's in Peru that a lot of people are having hard time trying to indicate whether they're real species and stuff like that. It's a very big old mystery right now. And then he's trying to get into podcasting more and stuff like that. So I told him I'll help him out.
Actually, let me jump in. He helped me to get into podcasting. So he's trying to be humble. But in reality, I didn't do too much podcasting, and I wanted to get into podcasting, like you were saying, and I just didn't find the right people. And I did 8 years of gaming streaming, and I've amassed like around almost close to 100,000 people that view me, and then I just died off. Because the doctor said I only had 5 years to live and all that stuff. And then I did this bariatric surgery. And now the doctor says I'm good. I don't have diabetes anymore. I have 2 stomachs and all that stuff. Just the short form of everything. Yeah. And then, and now I'm healthy. I used to be like 500 pounds. Oh, wow. So, and now I'm like, all those followers are no longer watching me. Like they sometimes come back. They're older now. And it's like I'm just taking a different pathway, and this is back in COVID time. So So it's like everybody's working and everything like that. So they don't really have a whole lot of time. So now I got into podcasting, and now we went from top 100 down. We're up to like top 50 in the religious and stuff like that in Apple Podcasts.
Oh,
And people are just super interested in what we have to say. And I didn't know that I had that gift. So it's like it's just an amazing journey for myself to be able to communicate. And I guess I didn't know I had the voice and how I can say things. And I'm different. I'm more of an entertainer, and that's where I come from. I am a TV actor. I'm on major TV shows that you'll see and spot me, but I don't have a beard or long hair, short hair and stuff like that. So my alter ego is Fat Jesus Life. I have a real name, of course, so that's a long story altogether.
okay.
But I didn't expect to live past the 5 years. So that is the whole thing. And now I'm here, and it's just a whole new life for me. Just doing this. So I'm just growing. And Rebirth, Tyrone is just amazing because he's lifting me up, and as veterans are, and he's just an amazing vet. I'm a vet. I'm a disabled combat vet, and he's a combat vet as well. And he Purple Heart as well. And he just helps me out, and he just pushes me along. And I have memory problems. So he helps me to remember things and get me through the day, and pushes me along to get through these podcasts. And I'm just humbled. I'm really humbled. And I'm so grateful to meet people like yourself, Stephen. I am. I'm
Ditto.
truly humbled.
Yeah, I am too. I mean, I was really amazed that you messaged that y'all messaged me, because when I look at your bio, I mean, I have it up right now. I mean, you've been all over, bro. I mean,
I am
literally,
grateful. I am so grateful to meet new and exciting people. And Stephen, you are just absolutely the reason why I do the podcast.
Oh, that's very sweet. Thank you for saying that. I appreciate that. And it's
Where-
fun to meet you guys as well. Yeah.
Yeah,
great.
where was your favorite place to be at?
There's some. I kind of like being everywhere, and I don't like being anywhere. I always want to be someplace else.
That makes sense.
But I do love spending time. And I spend a lot of time. The two places, I suppose, outside of the U.S. where I've spent the most time are Japan and Italy, and I have a lot of connection and a lot of time in Portugal. I'm also through my mother's family. I'm also a Portuguese citizen, so I have a Portuguese passport as well. And I've had so I do stuff in Portugal, and I've had my literary work translated into a number of different languages, including Portuguese and Italian and Swedish and
I also have Portuguese. I have like 30-20% Portuguese.
Okay.
I did the DNA test and everything.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
Crazy. I didn't know that.
Right.
I found out I have cousins that I don't even know that exist in Spain and Portugal and stuff like that.
Wow. Yeah.
It's crazy, right?
Yeah.
I know. I have immediate family that are from Puerto Rico, Cuba, and Colombia. But I have cousins that are in Spain, Portugal, Italy. They're just spread out. So they've been reaching out to me through the platforms.
Oh, nice.
Through the DNA. It's not just word of mouth, it's just like strangers out of nowhere. It's just through blood.
Right. That's interesting.
Wow. Yeah. It's just an incredible, the technology today.
Have you spent any time have either of you spent time in Europe?
I was actually born in Germany. I was born in Germany. That's actually where my journey started at, was because my dad used to take us to castles. He was very interested in, the masonry at the castles and stuff like that. Okay. So he used to take us to those, and I was like, man, this is so cool. Walking, in Germany, I don't know how it is now, because that was like at least 20, 30 years ago. But like, you could be driving down the road and see a castle and drive up to it, and didn't have to pay any fees or anything like that. You walk in there, and you can walk up the steps that goes around, And I learned the reason why it was like that, because that way when they was fighting the enemy, you couldn't, draw the sword a certain way and stuff like that. And you would walk up there all the way to the top, and then you would see things all the way around on a high mountain and stuff like that. So that's where my passion started, was in Germany. And that's why one of the reasons why I want to go back and do some of the stuff that I did in the past, to go take pictures of the stuff that I did. I know probably won't be able to walk to the castles like I did, except certain ones. But I mean, Europe has plenty of them. I've been to France.
Yes.
I've been to I've been to Paris, France. I've been to so many different places in Europe, just because it's easy to get on the train. And I was just so fascinated by like the little history, like when you was talking about the graffiti and all that stuff like that. I felt like, in some of the places where they had historical stuff like that, you could see a modern sense of graffiti there, and you can be like, okay, look at this in a different.
Have you been to Prague?
Yes.
Prague is a beautiful place. I went to Prague, and when you talk about graffiti, it is, and when your artwork, oh man, Prague is not a bright, sunny place. And I guess it's the time that I was there. It was kind of like a shadowy time. Like there's mostly clouds there. So, but man, when I looked at your photos, it reminded me of Prague. The way the shadows casted over mostly of it, all the area. But the people were beautiful. But the areas, the way they have the architecture and everything, because they had more of the because of all World War II and all that stuff, and then you got the castles from way back then. Such a history. Prague has so much history.
Unique because it really wasn't bombed, so it survives. And that's unusual for those cities. So yeah, and in fact, I've been in Prague a few times. The last time was in 2015, and I was doing a reading there. But I was also there in 1989. Before the revolution. Yeah, which was
were you able to take pictures then and then after?
No, I wasn't, and I wasn't. I was. I wasn't taking pictures in those contexts at that time. Yeah, but yeah.
I'd already just added 2 of your books to my list, to my Amazon list.
Oh, good.
Nice. I'm definitely going to look into getting your books. I love reading people, and just knowing that you're an author and a photographer. That's a plus for me, I have to say, because of the simple fact that, I mean, my podcast is usually with a lot of authors of books that I've read. I mean, it's not a great many of them, because a lot of books I read are from like 1900s and stuff like that. Right. But some of the people that I can get on there, I'm always asking people, if I can have a podcast discussion with them about their book. And they always all tell me that it feels good to know that somebody's reading their books. I mean, as an author, it's very hard to sell your book. Nobody wants to. For one, people are very cautious with their money, so they don't want to really spend their money on something like that. And that's actually why I have my website, is because if you don't want to, buy my book and you still want the information, because I'm so passionate in sharing information, my website is literally almost everything that I know. It's broken up in different spots and stuff like that. But I mean, I try to do it as much as I can. Then my YouTube channel is literally, full of the same stuff. So, I just try to share what I can. And I really enjoyed this conversation. I mean, we're at about an hour. I'm not sure.
Is there anything else you want to talk about real quick
that
before
we didn't get to touch on? Yeah.
I mean, we're not trying to rush or anything, because we're just recording. So if there's anything else you want to add, that way we could put it into the video, that'll be great.
No, I don't have any. I'm not a big plugger, so to speak. So I'll say what I will
I'll
say.
do it for you.
Well, I appreciate that. I will. I'll say one thing that might be of interest to you and your listeners on the website. You mentioned the way that people, people having to be cautious with their money and such. My last 3 literary works, I have done audiobooks for, that I make available for free. You can get them on Spotify or Audible or any of those things, but also from my website. If you go, you'll see links to all of that, and you can download them or stream them from there if you want. So just to say, there you go. And Anon is my last book. My newest book is Coda, and the one before that that's also there is called Plain Sight, and all three are available. So please, avail yourselves of that if should you be interested. Hopefully it's intriguing.
No, that's part of Spotify. But yeah, I was looking at that too. I was looking at that earlier, that you actually had Spotify, you have SoundCloud, you have Apple Podcasts, Audible.
Yeah.
And I was looking at, like, here's one of my the Apple Podcast one right here. This is actually the one that I was going to start today right here, because it's 3 hours and 38 minutes.
Yeah.
So I was actually going to watch that one after we got after this discussion. I wanted to watch it before, but I was like, no, because we got a discussion in like 3 hours anyway. So I'll put that to the side. So yeah, I got to say, it's amazing, because you actually took the time to do all this from yourself. This is
Truly
something. This is your creation. This is your, I call it, boots on ground type thing, and you're very fascinating. I'm definitely going to get your books. I try to buy 2 or 3 books within the next month or so. So I'll definitely save your email. If hopefully we can have a discussion about it.
Come back again. Happy to talk to you guys anytime. It's a real pleasure.
Yeah,
I'm going to be honest with you. No, I really haven't met anybody else like you. It's actually a unique approach to philosophy, poetry, and art. So, I mean, you are truly a gift to the area of philosophy and poetry. So I'm sure a lot of people are always inviting you to these symposiums, because it's just an area that is pretty empty, and you're just like the only person to invite for it. Am I right?
Well, there are others, I think, too. So I certainly enjoy being part of these conversations. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's just incredible artwork.
Thank you. I appreciate it. If there's
got a little hype now, can I let it die down? I remember days in the trench. Time to go hard in, time to go all in, time to get my all to this shit. Panamera maxed out, first class flights out, Atlantic to Pacific, yeah, it's lit.